All right, book 2 review questions. Any that you guys want to go over from those? Number 4, how does the old warrior Halitherses interpret the sign that Zeus sent? Anyone find this answer? Nobody? Yes?
I think as an unlock for them.
It's bad luck for the suitors. Yes? Where do we see this? Where do we see Halitherses interpreting a sign from Zeus? What page? In book 2. Open up your books, please. Try to find this. It's in book 2. There's only so many options there. Guys in the live chat, feel free to chime in. What page here? Talked about this scene yesterday. Maybe the day before yesterday. Page 98, yes. Telemachus finishes his speech. Then we see, there towards the top of the page, and to seal his prayer, far-seeing Zeus sent down a sign. We see the sign described, and then in line 175, until the old warrior Halitherses, Master's son, broke the silence for them. The one who outperformed all men of his time at reading bird signs, sounding out the omens, rose and spoke, distraught for each man there. So yes, what do we learn about this sign from Halitherses besides that it's bad? It's a bad sign for the suitors. It's a good sign for Telemachus because his eagles fly away on the right. Why is it? What else do we learn? What does he say in lines 180 to 186? Right, he says clearly in line 183, clearly Odysseus won't be far from loved ones any longer. Now, right now, he's somewhere near, I tell you. Breeding bloody death for all these suitors here. Yes. Any other questions from the review sheet you want to go over? Okay.
Number 8.
Yep.
It was what? Mentis, the mentor, and the king.
Not the king. Mentor, mentees. Well, mentees is the first one, then mentor, and then Telemachus, right? The prince, Prince Telemachus.
Oh, it was Prince.
Yeah. The king is Odysseus, who's not home again yet. Okay. Yes. Any others? Remember that these become your review sheets for these quizzes. All right. Let me hand out book 3 question sheets, and then we'll read book 3. So Telemachus here is going to be starting on his journey to find news about his father. And where are these? Here they are. And for those of you watching online, these also are posted under materials on Jupiter Grades, so you have them there. Book 3, page 107. Yes. What? The day after we finish working through book 3, so probably not before Friday. Definitely not tomorrow. Friday or Monday. Okay? It just depends on how long it takes for us to get through book 3. King Nestor remembers. We're going to be introduced to some other characters here that it's going to be important for you to be familiar with.
What's this? Homer. No, this is Homer.
Telemachus, not Odysseus. Telemachus is on this ship that Athena has helped him prepare. And they've set out as the sun sets. It's a wonderful scene there, the last 20 or so lines of book 2. Book 3 is going to open the next morning. As the sun sprang up, leaving the brilliant waters in its wake, climbing the bronze sky to shower light on immortal gods and mortal men across the plowlands ripe with grain, the ship pulled into Pylos, Neleus' storied citadel, where the people lined the beaches, sacrificing sleek black bulls to Poseidon, god of the sea blue mane who shakes the earth. They sat in 9 divisions, each 500 strong, each division offering up 9 bulls. And while the people tasted the innards, burned the thigh bones for the gods, the craft and crew came heading straight to shore. Striking sail, furling it in the balanced ship, they moored her well, and men swung down on land. Telemachus climbed out last, with Athena far in front, and the bright-eyed goddess urged the prince along. Telemachus, no more shyness. This is not the time. We sailed the seas for this, for news of your father. Where does he lie buried? What fate did he meet? So go right up to Nestor, breaker of horses. We'll make him yield the secrets of his heart. Press him yourself to tell the whole truth. He'll never lie. The man is far too wise. The prince replied, wise in his own way too. How can I greet him, mentor, even approach the king? I'm hardly adept at subtle conversation. Someone my age might feel shy, what's more, interrogating an older man. Telemachus, the bright-eyed goddess Athena reassured him. Some of the words you'll find within yourself, the rest some power will inspire you to say. You, least of all, I know, were born and reared without the gods' goodwill. The first destination that Telemachus reaches on his journey is where? What's the name of this place? What's the name of this place? First stop. Stop number 1. Pylos, yes. Who lives in Pylos that he's going to see? Nestor, yes. Home of Nestor. Nestor is a name you got to be. Who is Nestor? Yes. Anyone tell us anything about Nestor? He's not a character that Homer really introduces because he assumes that his audience is familiar with him already. Anyone who has read the Iliad remember who Nestor is? He is a warrior. He's a Greek warrior.
He's old.
He's known for being extremely old. For being the oldest and wisest of the Greeks who fought at Troy. Yes. There's one scene in the Iliad where he's giving some of the other Greeks advice, and he points out that he's old enough to be some of the grandfather of some of them, or even the great-grandfather of some of them. Very old and wise, and he is one of the survivors here. Odysseus, what's the similarity between Odysseus and Nestor? This wisdom, right? Odysseus is known not so much for being the greatest fighter of the Greeks, although he can certainly hold his own, but for being very clever. And so this intellectual ability is something that he and Nestor shared in common. So picking up then from line 33, Telemachus is heading to meet Nestor, who's much, much older than he is. He's feeling a little uncertain. And Pallas Athena sped away in the lead as he followed in her footsteps. Man and goddess gained the place where the Pylians met and massed. There sat Nestor, among his sons, as friends around them decked the banquet, roasted meats and skewered strips for broiling. As soon as they saw the strangers, all came crowding down, waving them on in welcome, urging them to sit. Nestor's son Pisistratus, first to reach them, grasped their hands and sat them down at the feast, on fleecy throws spread out along the sandbanks, flanking his brother Thrasymedes and his father. He gave them a share of innards, poured some wine in a golden cup, and lifting it warmly toward Athena, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is storm and thunder, greeted the goddess now with an invitation. Say a prayer to Lord Poseidon, stranger. His is the feast you found on your arrival. But once you've made your libation and your prayer, all according to ancient custom, hand this cup of hearty, seasoned wine to your comrade too here, so he can pour forth too. He too, I think, should pray to the deathless ones himself. All men need the gods. But the man is younger, just about my age. That's why I give the gold cup first to you. With that, Pisistratus placed in her hand the cup of mellow wine, and Pallas rejoiced at the prince's sense of tact in giving the golden wine cup first to her. At once she prayed intensely to Poseidon. Hear me, Sea Lord, you who embrace the earth. Don't deny our wishes. Bring our prayers to pass. First then to Nestor and all his sons, grant glory. Then to all these Pylians for their splendid rites. Grant a reward that warms their gracious hearts. And last, Poseidon, grant Telemachus and myself safe passage home, the mission accomplished that sped us here in our rapid black ship. So she prayed and brought it all to pass. She offered the rich two-handled cup to Telemachus, Odysseus' son, who echoed back her prayer word for word. They roasted the prime cuts, pulled them off the spits, and sharing out the portions fell to the royal feast. This is the first sacrifice scene that we see in the Odyssey. There are a number of them in both the Iliad and the Odyssey. What do you notice about this ceremony, this rite, this sacrifice that the Greeks, or that the Pylians, the people of Pylos, they're Greeks, are offering here at the opening of Book 3? What are some things that you notice? What's weird about it?
Sacrifice.
Okay, sacrifice. What are they sacrificing? Not a human sacrifice.
When the beginning when Odysseus sacrificed the dog.
No, so when Agamemnon sacrifices Iphigenia, yeah, that was unusual for the Greeks. But here at the beginning of Book 3, there's a different kind of sacrifice going on. This is the normal kind of sacrifice for the Greeks in Homer's world. What are they sacrificing? Not people. Meat. Okay. What kind of meat? What kind of animals are they sacrificing here? Bulls. Yes, they're sacrificing bulls. They're large. They're delicious. They're expensive. They're hard to feed. It isn't easy to raise cattle in Greece. That's the best kind of sacrifice. And what happens to the sacrifice? So they kill the bulls, and then what else do they do? Well, what do they do? They just kill the bulls, that's it? They pray to the gods. What else? So the bulls are dead. What now? They eat them. They cut them up in a certain specified way. There are certain portions that they offer up to the gods, and then the rest they eat themselves. We also see a sacrifice made of what? In addition to the bulls being sacrificed, there's also, what kind of sacrifice does Athena make here? It's kind of interesting that Athena makes a sacrifice here on page 109. It's a little hard to tell because it's not said explicitly. But notice that at the bottom of page 108, Pisistratus, one of Nestor's sons, hands Athena, what disguise is she in? What disguise is Athena in? Who's she disguised as? How does Telemachus refer to her towards the top of page 108? Mentor. She's still disguised as Mentor here. Pisistratus offers something to Mentor here at the bottom of 108. He offers Mentor a cup of wine. Not to drink, but to make a libation.
What is rejoicing?
Be glad, be happy. A libation is a liquid sacrifice. Usually wine or water. And so the way you do it is you would take a cup or sometimes a sort of dish of wine or water. You'd offer prayer to the gods, and then you'd pour it out on the ground as a way of offering it to the gods. Similar to the parts of the bulls that they don't eat that they offer to the gods, they burn them to a crisp in the fire so they can't be eaten. So libation here, that's the kind of sacrifice that Athena offers, disguised as Mentor. And then Telemachus, passes the cup to Telemachus, and he makes the same prayer. And what god are they praying to here? Poseidon. Why is it interesting that they're praying to Poseidon? Because what? Okay, they were just sailing. What role does Poseidon play in the story as a whole up to this point? What is Poseidon doing that's relevant to...
Keeping Odysseus away from home.
Right, he's the one who's angry at Odysseus and keeping him from returning home. And here we have Telemachus and Athena both offering sacrifice to him. Okay, continuing. Line, 75. Once they'd put aside desire for food and drink, old Nestor, the noble charioteer, began at last. Now's the time, now they've enjoyed their meal, to probe our guests and find out who they are. Strangers, friends, who are you? Where did you sail from over the running sea lanes? Out on a trading spree, or roving the waves like pirates, sea wolves raiding at will, who risk their lives to plunder other men? Poised Telemachus answered, filled with heart, the heart Athena herself inspired, to ask for the news about his father, gone so long. 110. And make his name throughout the mortal world. Nestor, son of Neleus, Achaea's pride and glory, where are we from, you ask? I will tell you all. We hail from Ithaca, under the heights of Nion. Our mission here is personal, nothing public now. I am on the trail of my father's widespread fame, you see, searching the earth to catch some news of great-hearted King Odysseus, who, they say, fought with you to demolish Troy some years ago. About all the rest who fought the Trojans there, we know where each one died his wretched death. But father, even his death, the son of Cronus, shrouds it all in mystery. The son of Cronus is Zeus.
Yes.
No one can say for certain where he died, whether he went down on land at enemy hands or out on the open sea in Amphitrite's breakers. That's why I've come to plead before you now, if you can tell me about his cruel death. Perhaps you saw him die with your own eyes, or heard the wanderer's end from someone else. More than all other men, that man was born for pain. Don't soften a thing from pity, respect for me. Tell me clearly all your eyes have witnessed. I beg you, if ever my father, Lord Odysseus, pledged you his word and made it good in action once on the fields of Troy, where you Achaeans suffered, remember his story now. Tell me the truth. Nestor, the noble charioteer, replied at length, Ah, dear boy, since you call back such memories, such living hell we endured in distant Troy, we headstrong, fighting forces of Achaea. So many raids from shipboard down the foggy sea, cruising for plunder, wherever Achilles led the way. So many battles round King Priam's walls we fought, so many gone, our best and bravest fell. There Ajax lies, the great man of war. There lies Achilles too. There Patroclus, skilled as the gods in council. And there, my own dear son, both strong and staunch, Antilochus, lightning on his feet and every inch a fighter. But so many other things we suffered past that count. What mortal in this wide world can tell it all? Not if you sat and probed his memory 5-6 years, delving for all the pains our brave Achaeans bore there. Your patience would fray. You'd soon head for home. 9 years we wove a web of disaster for those Trojans, pressing them hard with every tactic known to man. And only after we slaved did Zeus award us victory. And no one there could hope to rival Odysseus, not for sheer cunning. At every twist of strategy, he excelled us all. Your father, yes, if you are in fact his son, I look at you and a sense of wonder takes me. Your way with words is just like his. I'd swear no youngster could ever speak like you. So apt, so telling. As long as I and great Odysseus soldiered there, why never once did we speak out at odds. neither in open muster nor in royal council, forever one in mind, in judgment balanced, shrewd. We mapped our army's plans so things might turn out best. But then, once we'd sacked King Priam's craggy city, Zeus contrived in his heart a fatal homeward run for all the Achaeans who were fools, at least dishonest too. So many met a disastrous end, thanks to the lethal rage of the mighty father's daughter. Eyes of fire, Athena set them feuding. Atreus' 2 sons, they summoned all the Achaean ranks to muster, rashly, just at sunset. No hour to rally troops. And in they straggled, sodden with wine, our heroes. The brothers harangued them, told them why they'd met. A crisis. Menelaus urging the men to fix their minds on the voyage home across the seas brought back. But it brought no joy to Agamemnon, not at all. He meant to detain us there and offer victims, anything to appease Athena's dreadful wrath. Poor fool, he never dreamed Athena would not comply. The minds of the everlasting gods don't change so quickly. So the 2 of them stood there wrangling back and forth till the army sprang up, their armor clashing, ungodly uproar. The 2 plans split the ranks. That night we barely slept, seething with hard feelings against our own comrades. For Zeus was brooding over us, poised to seal our doom. At dawn, half of us hauled our vessels down to sea. We stowed our plunder, our sashed and lovely women. But half the men held back, camped on the beach, waiting it out for Agamemnon's next commands while our contingent embarked. We pushed off and sailed at a fast clip as a god smoothed out the huge, troughing swells. We reached Tenedos quickly, sacrificed to the gods, the crews keen for home. But a quick return was not in Zeus's plans, not yet. That cruel power loosed a cursed feud on us once again. Some swung their rolling warships hard about. Odysseus sailed them back, the flexible, wily king, veering over to Agamemnon now to shore his fortunes up. But not I. Massing the ships that came in my flotilla, I sped away as the gods' mischief kept on brewing, dawning on me now. And Tydeus' fighting son Diomedes fled too, rousing all his comrades. Late in the day, the red-haired Menelaus joined us, overtook us at Lesbos, debating the long route home, whether to head north over the top of rocky Chios, skirting Syre, keeping that island off to port, or run south of Chios by Mimas' gusty cape. We asked the god for a sign. He showed us one. He urged, and on we raced, over the sea lanes rife with fish, and we made Gerestus Point in the dead of night. Many thighs of bulls we offered Poseidon there. Thank God we'd crossed that endless reach of sea. Then on the 4th day, out the crews of Diomedes, breaker of horses, moored their balanced ships at Argos port. But I held course for Pylos, yes. And never once did the good strong wind go limp from the first day the god unleashed its blast. And so dear down. But still, all I've gathered by hearsay sitting here in my own house, that you'll learn, it's only right. I'll hide nothing now. They say the Myrmidons, those savage spearmen led by the shining son of lion-hearted Achilles, traveled home unharmed. Philoctetes, the gallant son of Poeas, safe as well. Idomeneus brought his whole contingent back to Crete, all who'd escaped the war. The sea snatched none from him. But Atreus' son Agamemnon, you yourselves, even in far-off Ithaca, must have heard how he returned, how Aegisthus hatched the king's horrendous death. But what a price he paid in blood and suffering. Ah, how fine it is when a man is brought down to leave a son behind. Orestes took revenge. He killed that cunning, murderous Aegisthus who killed his famous father. And you, my friend, how tall and handsome I see you now. Be brave, you too, so men to come will sing your praises down the years. Okay, very long response by Nestor to Telemachus' question about his father. What does Nestor tell us about here? Telemachus asked him this question. Even just Telemachus' appearance brings back memories of the old days. And what here does Nestor remember? Does he tell Telemachus? You know what?
Mm-hmm.
So he starts with remembering many of the men who were lost there. And then he brings us in the middle of page 111 to once the point when the Greeks have finally conquered Troy. What is it that happened? So the Greeks have taken Troy. What happens there? Bottom of 111 and top of 112. Part of the tragedy of the Trojan War is that even when people get what they want, in this case, the victory in the war, things don't go right for them.
They suffer.
The Greeks suffer. How do they suffer? What is it?
They suffer to get home.
Yeah, a lot of them struggle to get home. We hear mention of some of these portions of the Greek fleet that were destroyed or partially destroyed on the voyage home. What about Nestor? What did he encounter on his way home? Maybe let's go back. So the war's over. The Greeks are at Troy. What do they do then?
And they destroyed the
Take a look at. Okay, but after that, after they've sacked Troy, what is it that the Greeks do?
go back home.
Before they go back home? There are problems already before they even leave Troy. Starting from line 147, 146. But then, once we'd sacked King Priam's craggy city, Zeus contrived in his heart a fatal homeward run for all the Achaeans who were fools at least, dishonest too. So many met a disastrous end, thanks to the lethal rage of the mighty father's daughter. Eyes of fire, Athena set them feuding, Atreus' two sons. Who are the two sons of Atreus?
Well, Agamemnon and
Right, Agamemnon and Menelaus. And what does this mean that they're feuding? What is a feud? F-E-U-D.
Like, they have a disagreement.
A disagreement. In this case, a pretty serious one. And what is this feud about, this disagreement? They summoned all the Achaean ranks to muster. It means they brought the whole Greek army there, lined them up. Rashly, just at sunset, no hour to rally troops, and in they straggled, sodden with wine, our heroes. So they call the Greek army together, and what kind of state is the Greek army in? Bad. They're sodden with wine. What does that mean? They're drunk. They're all drunk. Okay. Somebody has the bright idea. Hey, let's call all the men together in the middle of their partying after capturing the city that it took them 10 years to defeat. Okay, so the whole Greek army shows up drunk. The brothers harangued them, means addressed them with speeches, told them why they'd met, a crisis. Menelaus urging the men to fix their minds on the voyage home across the sea's broad back. What does Menelaus want them to do? Yeah, get ready to go home. Let's get out of here. We've been here too long. But it brought no joy to Agamemnon, not at all. He meant to detain us there and offer victims, anything to appease Athena's dreadful wrath. What does Agamemnon want to do instead of getting ready to leave? He wants to stay there and do what? Make sacrifice, offer victims to Athena. Yes. And what does the army end up doing? sprang up and did what? Their armor clashing, ungodly uproar. The two clans split the ranks. They start fighting with each other. That night we barely slept, he says, seething with hard feelings against our own comrades. The war's over. They've won. They should be happy. Instead, countries like we think of them don't exist at this point in time. There are people, Greeks, they're an ethnic group. They speak different versions of the same language, but they each live in their separate little cities ruled by their own kings. This whole army is only just barely held together by Agamemnon and Menelaus, the two most prominent of the kings. Because each city is just doing its own thing. They don't have the resources, even if they wanted to be controlling large areas of territory. This is how Greece, for the most part, in the ancient world operated. Greece as a country is a very recent phenomenon. It's been parts of lots of other things. The people have been there for a long time. They still speak a version of the same language. But for most of Greek history, and you have to understand a bit about Greek geography. Greece is basically a mountain range that's half sunk in the Mediterranean Sea. And so some parts of it are underwater, some parts of it are out of the water, and some parts of it are partially in the water. So the underwater parts, well, it's just the Mediterranean Sea. The parts that are out of the water is mainland Greece, and it's very mountainous. And the parts that are sort of in the water are all these islands. They're mountaintops, effectively. It's very difficult to travel between different parts of Greece, even now, because it's mountainous. It's hard to grow food there. There isn't good land, a lot of good land for growing crops. It's hard to raise animals there, especially large ones like cattle, mostly smaller ones like sheep and goats. And so because it's difficult to travel around, and the only ways of getting around that they have are wagons and horses and walking, communication is very limited. And so the setup that you generally have is you have a polis, which is the Greek word for a city. There are these independent cities, and they control some territory around them, where their farms are, where they grow their wine, their olive oil, where their sheep and their goats graze. They grow their wheat and their barley and all that. And so they control the area sort of immediately around them that support, in terms of producing food, the people in the city, and they protect that area. But otherwise, the people in the next city over probably speak a different version of Greek, or at least a little bit different from yours. You really would have nothing to do with them except maybe occasionally fighting with them over some territory on the border. And the Greeks are always fighting with each other. And we see that here also. Even the Trojan War, the high point of the ancient Greek world, they're unified for the single goal. It doesn't hang together for long. All right, we'll pause there for now. At the end of Nestor's speech, notice that he also mentions at the end. He says at one point in the middle how much Telemachus reminds him of Odysseus, and then at the end, it's almost like a challenge to Telemachus. He mentions Orestes avenging his father's murder. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and that'll be